And perfect timing somewhat with the music. I'm Mary Walter. Welcome to Mary Walter Radio. How are you? I hope everyone had a great week since last week and great weekend. As you can see, that familiar, beautiful face right there is my friend Christine Flowers. And not only is she beautiful, but she's incredibly smart. She's whip smart. She's a lawyer. She hosts radio shows. She's a political commentator. She's a columnist. And in between all of that, she has time to go out and explore Philadelphia and post all these pictures eating from all these incredible cafes and Italian restaurants and everything. So I have no idea when she has time to do all of this, but somehow she manages to do it all. Christine, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for joining me. Glad you're here.
Yo, Mayor, I'm bringing the Delta today. It's good to see you. I love you. I mean, it's a mutual admiration society. I follow you everywhere. I follow you on Newsmax, on Twitter. You were recently, I want you back. You were recently in Philly, you were subbing for my good friend Dawn Stensland with
Yes.
the morning crew with Nick. And I'll tell you, those guys, you were fabulous. And you really, really gave it to them. And I love the way that on your last day, you really did the Scarface thing. You took the flame from the.
I think it's the last day. It's the last day. What the heck? I'm out.
It was great. It was great. I hope you come back. We want, I mean, we love that strong female presence. And I'm not, you know me, I'm not the I am woman, hear me roar, Helen Reddy feminist, but yeah. I really do miss that take no prisoners kind of female voice, especially with NPR, and they're very quiet, very measured, very somnolent, boring kind of cadence.
Well, I will say Dawn gives it to them pretty well. So
she's fabulous.
She holds her own. She is fabulous. And she was just away for 2 weeks. So I think it's going to be a while before I'm back on PHT in Philadelphia until Dawn takes another vacation. I'll get a couple of days in here or there.
I'd love to see the two of you together. I think that would be a pretty amazing setup. And let's get rid of Greg and Nick.
And you can join us because you're on with Dawn quite a bit, so you can join us as well, right? We do the three girls. That'd be fantastic. All right, so housekeeping here. Some new subscribers. Thank you so much, Alan Harrier. Thank you for joining me. Alan is on. If you go to Facebook.com and you look for Mary Walter Radio, I have a private group there. And you have to, ask to get into the group and you check your messages. You'll get some questions just to make sure that you really genuinely want to join the group and someone didn't just like sign you up. I hate when people do that to me. So you have to answer the questions. Alan's part of that group. Koff Hyde, J. Ellis, D.V. Nguyen, Nguyen, N-G-U-Y-E-N. How do you pronounce that? You're an immigration attorney, N-G-U-Y-E-N.
I would say Nguyen.
Nguyen, okay.
Nguyen.
All right,
and the N is silent.
All right, I don't know. I got nothing. I think it's like Laotian or something like that.
Yeah,
and Shelley.
Yeah. By the way, I am immigration lawyer. See, this is my little squunchy. This is supposed to keep me sane. It's my little tension squeezy, and it's her.
Oh, is it one of those things like a tension ball type thing?
Yeah, I shouldn't be doing this to the Statue of Liberty.
Not.
Anyway, all right.
The French would not be happy with you.
Mais non.
And Shelley Dewey, thank you so much for subscribing. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. If you do watch the podcast, I appreciate if you would like them. Give them a thumbs up. That's fantastic. Feel free to tiptoe through the older podcast. Just go to youtube.com/Mary Walter Radio and then go to streams. If you go to live, which comes up first, there's 3 podcasts there that have the most views because I think everyone thinks that's all we've done. But those were ones that we had to repost. I had to take them down because they had music in them or something, had to edit it out and put them back up. And you can't put them under streams. They have to go to live. It's a weird thing. So, but if you go to streams, you will see, by the way, if you put them in most popular, Ms. Christine Flowers comes out of the top. So the podcasts with you come out in the top.
You like me. You really like me.
Okay, we have a lot to get to. So first, let's get to some of the comments. Bill says, hello, Queen Mary, and hello, Christine.
Hi, Bill.
Excuse me. Now Tax USA, Steve Redden, here's Mary, the other great one. Move over, Levin. Ha
He's right. He's absolutely
Uh,
right.
yeah, I'm the unemployed version of Mark Levin. Scott Wagner says, good evening. Good evening, Scott. All right. So one of the things we're going to talk about, and Christine and I were both commenting last night on X on Julie Kelly's thread. Julie Kelly's amazing. You should follow her. It's Julie_Kelly. She is absolutely a dynamo when it comes to these court cases with Trump and all this stuff. And I think a lot of people now, she's kind of out up there with Matt Taibbi and some others where people send her stuff
Yes.
and she gets some of the inside scoop. Before I get there, since you're an immigration lawyer, I just wanted to share this. The El Paso Times is reporting that a county court judge dismissed 140 cases against those illegals who were charged in an April 12th riot at the border. Remember, they broke down the fences, they assaulted the officers. You would have thought it was January 6th because they assaulted officers. It's terrible. Unfortunately, none of them were wearing red hats, so it's all cool. County Court at Law 7 Judge Ruben Morales dismissed the 140 cases during a hearing yesterday after ruling the Texas Department of Public Safety state troopers failed to provide probable cause for the mass arrest.
Probable cause? The video wasn't enough? I mean, res ipsa freaking loquitur over there. That's outrageous. That is placing that to me. Listen, again, I'm an immigration attorney. I understand the chaos at the border. I understand the problems. But that was a danger, a clear and present danger. I'm using the wrong terms, obviously, because we're not talking about the First Amendment. That was a danger to the Border Patrol officers. Border Patrol officers have been shot and killed by immigrants. Or intending immigrants. So this is outrageous. This sends a horrific message.
And some of them were hurt. He said, after reviewing the affidavit, I don't believe that probable cause exists. I don't believe there's probable cause for these individuals to continue to be detained for the offense of riot participation. I'm like, really? Like, that's not enough. I just don't think we should be allowing people into the country who participate in a riot, hurt police officers in order to get into the country.
Okay, but Mayor, maybe, okay, so these were state charges, right? These were riot.
Right.
So then ICE could come in. The Department of Justice and the Department of Homeland Security can come in and charge them with federal crimes and perhaps not just detain them, but remove them. They show a propensity for violence. One of the things that I do when I seek to get an individual, an alien, released from custody, I need to show that they are not a threat to the public safety. I'm sorry, but you're rioting and you're attacking peace officers, Border Patrol. You are not going to get bond, and you probably are either going to be held, pending whatever kind of asylum proceeding you want, or you're going to be summarily removed. That just angers me so much as an immigrant, as someone who works with people who are trying to thread the needle and do it the right way.
Right.
They have gall to do that at our southern border. Anyway, okay.
They will now be released from state custody, but as you said, they're still facing federal charges of illegal entry and are going to be turned over to federal custody. The dismissal does not mean that they can't be charged with riot participation later. The El Paso District Attorney's Office can still indict them on those charges. But I got news. I don't see the feds holding them. I see the feds releasing them on their own reconnaissance like they do with everybody, and off they go. We never see them again. Bye-bye. See ya. Thank you, America.
I don't know, because even though they were not charged, they were arrested for violent acts. Now, under immigration law, you don't need a conviction in order to have criminal charges pending against you, even if they're dropped, to have them keep you from being able to be released into the general population. So, unless they have really good crackerjack attorneys, and I would not take these cases, by the way, not saying that I'm crackerjack, but there's no way that I would represent a rioter at the border. People are already coming in without permission. And then to do that with that kind of an attitude, no way. But unless they have very good attorneys, I have a feeling that many of them are either going to be detained or they're going to ask to be removed. They're going to ask to be returned. It boggles my mind that in any scenario, in any world, a judge would say that what we saw on video is not sufficient probable cause for detention, for detaining them. And I don't want them back into my country. I don't want them back into the general population.
No,
That's scary.
it is. It is. Porchview Farm says they will be released and voting.
No,
Probably
I
not.
mean, no. Yeah. Okay. Unless there's an accelerated process, naturalize them. I don't think so. But
Well, okay. Here's another one. I just found these two immigration pieces popped up on Citizen Free Press just as I was sitting here getting ready, as soon as we were waiting for 10 o'clock, 7 and 10 to come around. So do you remember those migrants who were sent by Governor DeSantis to Martha's Vineyard, and they were like scurried off that island post haste? They gave them some cereal and said, on your way.
yeah.
Well, they now are on the path to securing legal status as part of they received bona fide determinations in their U visa petition this week, which allows them some freedoms, including the ability to legally work and protection against deportation until their visas become available. They qualify for crime victim visas.
Okay. So please tell me that the crime was not that they were moved from the border to Martha's Vineyard, because that would
Yep.
be an Obama-frickin-nation. I do U visas all the time. My clients have been brutalized. They've been raped. They've been sexually assaulted. They have been pistol whipped. They have been, I mean, we're talking real crimes here. People who have been, because they live in Philadelphia, city of brotherly danger. And I've gotten them U visa certifications. The process is you got to get a certification from a law enforcement officer. It could be a prosecutor, it could be a police officer, what have you. Then you go and you file the application. And yes, there is a quote prima facie determination that's made whether or not you're going to, be approved. That usually comes within a year or so. So yeah, the timeline for the guys on Martha's Vineyard does make sense, because it does seem like that was about a year, whatever, year and a half ago.
Yep.
And then it takes about, right now they're backlogged up to 6 or 7 years before they'll get their green cards. But yes, they'll get work authorization. But Mary, that is so appalling that they have been able. Now, I am sure that these cases were filed in Massachusetts, true blue Massachusetts, and either a prosecutor or an attorney general or a police force there has signed off on their U certifications, because unless you have the U certification, you can't go forward with the case. I would love to know what they placed in their certification application. What crime were they victims of? Human trafficking? Because there's a whole other visa for that.
I will tell you. I can tell you that. Gregory says they were kidnapped. That's the crime. So in this case, the migrants
were kidnapped?
No, that's what Gregory said. The migrants worked with a Texas sheriff after the new arrivals said Florida officials and others duped them into getting on 2 chartered planes in San Antonio with false promises of cash payments and job opportunities. Now, do you believe that for a hot second?
I'm sorry, I have to close my mouth. That is beyond offensive. That really, when I think of what kidnapping is, and I think of what they call false imprisonment, this is actually much closer to false imprisonment, even though I don't think it is. But false imprisonment basically means you are being taken under false pretenses to a place, or you're being held and you're not allowed to be released. The kidnapping requires a criminal intent, a nefarious motive. Moving one group of migrants to another place is not kidnapping.
No,
And
but
it's only
the
their
art,
own
wait,
word, Mary. It's only their own word. I don't know what other kind of objective evidence there was that they were promised jobs.
right.
Promised jobs?
Right.
Please.
So, first of all, it was Gregory and one of the viewers who said they were kidnapped. That's the crime. What the article is saying is that immigration attorney Rachel Self has been assisting the migrants since 22, and it says that they worked with the Texas sheriff to say that they were duped into and they were promised all this stuff, and that's why they went to Martha's Vineyard. So that's the crime.
But being lied to is not I mean, I'll give you the list. If I could pull it up, I'll show you. There's a list of about 25 different qualifying predicate crimes. I don't know. Maybe it's because it's you know, it's not a legal article. It's not a law review article, and so they're not really citing the statute. But I can't figure out what crime was committed.
Yeah. Well, 3 of the original group of 49 have received the designation so far. This attorney, Rachel Self, has been assisting them since 2022. She says the early determinations indicate more will be issued since they were all caught up in the same scheme. Issuing bona fide determinations for U visa applicants is a relatively new process. It was implemented in 2021. These determinations are one step closer. They further underscore that anyone who knows all the facts simply cannot ignore the criminality of the actors. In other words, Governor DeSantis. DeSantis took credit for the flights. A week after, the county sheriff in San Antonio opened an investigation into whether the migrants were lured under false pretenses from a migrant resource center in San Antonio and brought after a brief stop in Florida to Martha's Vineyard, where they were unceremoniously stranded. About
Mary,
a month later,
I'm sorry.
go ahead. About a month later, the sheriff certified that the migrants taken to the vineyard are legally victims of a crime and that they are assisting a law enforcement investigation.
No, they're not. They're assisting a presidential campaign is what they're doing. They're not assisting law enforcement. Well, you know what? What I was going to say was if this is the case, if they are actually going to try and frame this as a crime, what happened to them getting on the bus, then you could actually call what they themselves willingly submit to get to the United States as a crime. Because what happens is they put themselves into the hands of the coyotes. They pay, smugglers, alien smugglers.
Right.
They pay them. The crime has to have occurred in the United States for a U visa to be issued, but the smuggling continues into the United States. The smuggling never stops at the border. What happens is you get smuggled in, you go into these so-called safe houses. So if that's the case, then these individuals who have been actually complicit in their own smuggling could, if we extend it this far, could try and file charges against their smugglers, who, by the way, are gone. By the time these people are in the United States, these smugglers have disappeared into the ether, but they could still file police reports. And I mean, to me, it angers me to no end. And I will tell you, there are other immigration lawyers who feel the same way. We are not all crazy, like Columbia University protesters standing outside of the gates of Babylon. There are some very reasonable immigration attorneys out there who understand that the center cannot hold and that the border is in chaos, and that if we keep rewarding bad behavior, we are never going to be able to help our clients who, for example, today I was in immigration court with a young woman who had been waiting 8 years for her asylum hearing to be held. Wow. She didn't even get a decision today. She probably will in the next couple of weeks, because the judge didn't have time to issue a decision because the judge had, 100 other people waiting. But these people deserve to be heard. Rioters at the border, who aren't, who aren't going to be charged with a crime, and people who are put on a bus because, gosh, how did they get into the United States? They probably were put on a bus by smugglers from wherever, from, Guanajuato or wherever point they came from in the Northern Triangle. I mean, I don't want, this is not immigration 101 over here, but it angers me when I see these things happening. And it is very hard for me to push back when I hear some what becomes xenophobic commentary. I have to sort of say, I understand why people feel the way they do, because they see this craziness happening and they think that the country is being overtaken. And it doesn't allow me as an immigration attorney to try and explain this and say, well, no, there are really good people out there who deserve asylum. There are really good people out there who deserve an opportunity in the United States to work. There are people who have family. There are people who have been waiting 20 years, I kid you not, for their visas to be approved. But that makes it, what happens at the border makes it so much more difficult for me to actually push back and say those things. I almost feel embarrassed because, anyway.
Yeah, no. So I'm glad we got that. So I want to move on very quickly. Joe says, hey, Joe, you're new. Welcome, Joe. Several were misgendered, resulting in severe trauma.
Do not laugh. That probably is considered a hate crime, Joe.
Oh, I'm sure it is. I'm sure it is. Bashing in a young woman in Georgia's head, though, not a hate crime, right?
Or up here in Pennsylvania. In Pennsylvania, we just had a trans student, a boy who's confused. He calls himself Melissa, who was transferred to a local high school here, the North Penn School District. A young girl, he went into the bathroom. He bashed her in the head numerous times with one of those Stanley coffee cups.
Oh, the coffee, the water cup. Yeah.
And had a hit list. This person had a hit list of the people. And if you listen to our local media, most of them, they haven't mentioned the fact that it is a trans student, just as they didn't mention the fact that the murderer in, was it Kentucky or Tennessee that took out that school, that elementary school?
Oh, yes. That was Kentucky. I don't remember. Maybe Tennessee. Maybe. I don't remember which one. Yeah, Kentucky, Tennessee. It kind of blends together for me. Right? Right? Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, kind of like all blobs together.
Tennessee, or like Pennsylvania.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So last night, we were both on Julie Kelly's Twitter thread last night, on her feed last night, because it was exploding, because Julie Kelly got the Judge Cannon down in Florida, who is presiding over the documents case that Jack Smith is supposedly trying. And Judge Cannon, and Jack Smith wanted to fast track this. He wanted to fast track this, and she put the brakes on Jack Smith, and he is not happy with her. He wanted her taken off the case. He is not a happy camper. And she was the one who asked him, if the alleged crime happened in Florida, why did you seat a jury to get an indictment in Washington, D.C.? So he should have known from right there, she was not going to make this easy on him. So there was a whole bunch that he wanted concealed, a whole bunch of documents that he wanted concealed. And she said no. And so the only thing redacted now are people's names, like person 40, person 52. So you don't have their names. But what, according to Julie Kelly, and Christine is here to explain this all to us because I don't understand a lot of it. Apparently, Joe Biden, Merrick Garland, DOJ, Jack Smith, and the National Archives colluded in order to be able to charge Donald Trump with a crime regarding the classified documents. So tell us what's in here, Christine, because you understand them. I don't.
Well, don't underestimate yourself, Mary. I think you understand a lot more than you say. But first of all, I would tell your audience to go to Julie Kelly's thread, because it is self-explanatory. She's amazing. She is, I don't know if she has a law degree. I'm not sure. She's a journalist. She's a fearless journalist. And she's in the vein of Lara Logan and Cheryl, remind me, not Cheryl. Oh my gosh. The wonderful woman who left CBS. And,
Catherine Herridge.
Catherine Herridge, but also I'm sure one of your listeners will be able to put that in there. One of your viewers.
Jennifer Griffin,
Not
Catherine
Jennifer.
Herridge,
Catherine Herridge. No, Cheryl. Oh
Chumley.
No, maybe it's not Cheryl. It'll come to me.
You're watching an advertisement for Prevagen right here.
She laughed. I know. Oh my God, the Villanova pedigree is not serving us well over here. Anyway,
anyway, Greg says, God bless Eileen Mercedes Cannon. Porch View Far, before you go on, says, Christine is professional and cares. Of course, trying to explain some people are really deserving to be here. It must be very frustrating, but we need such people such as her on the front lines.
Aw, thank you so much.
And here comes John Dillon comes in with Cheryl Atkinson.
Thank you. Yes. I know. Thank you. Cheryl Atkinson. That's it.
It's Cheryl, Sharyl, Cheryl, but it's so I always never, as you're saying, Cheryl, thank you, right. John. If I had a John, I would send it to you. We appreciate you.
I was ready to go out on a corner with my cup and start begging. I just feel so decrepit and feeble.
I know. Wait, I have questions are coming in very quickly here. Joe says at some point he wants you to answer this a serious question. You actually know what you're talking about. Oh, good. Oh, look at that. Ms. Clifford signed an NDA, took the money, violated the NDA. Isn't she subject to prosecution? That's a different Trump case. That's the case that's going on right now in New York with Alvin Bragg. And at issue is not the NDA. An NDA is not illegal. Signing an NDA is not illegal. They're trying to make it sound like, oh, it's a hush money case. It's really a bookkeeping case. This is an accounting case that he allegedly should have put it under as a campaign expense instead of a personal expense. And that's why they've charged him 34 times with felonies and everything else. But I think it's a good question. She signed the NDA, she took the money, and then she broke it. Can Trump not prosecute her?
Well, that would not be a criminal offense. That would be a civil offense. And yeah, he could sue her. I don't think there's actually a crime there. It's an agreement between two private parties. It's a contractual agreement. So it's been broken, and absolutely, he could sue her. He could also try and have her removed or prevented from being a witness against him, because that's exactly what the whole point of an NDA is. Can I say one quick thing about the porn star case?
Yes.
I think that the law is definitely on Donald Trump's side, because as you know, it's been explained by Andy McCarthy. He's one of the greatest minds, National Review, Andy McCarthy, former federal prosecutor, that you can only be convicted of election interference if that was the only point in your actions, the only goal. So let's say and this is exactly what the defense is going to do for Donald Trump. Let's say Donald Trump did not want Stormy Daniels out there. He didn't want, and Karen McDougal, he didn't, the former Playboy bunny, Playmate, did not want them to say anything because it would make it more difficult for him to win an election. Okay, fine. But let's also say that perhaps he also didn't want to embarrass his wife. He loved Melania. He did not want this to cause him a problem. That is feasible. That is plausible. And because you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt in a criminal action that what you're saying actually happened, if there's any possibility that Trump had a dual motive there, that he didn't want Melania to find out, which I would posit is probably what happened as well, then you cannot convict him on this. The problem is not the law. The problem is the jury pool that they drew from.
Yep.
New Yorkers despise Donald Trump. And
Yep.
the people that they were pulling from despise Donald Trump. You can see all of them, the ones who are falling off and saying, I don't think I can be a juror. I can't take it. So I worry about jury nullification. I worry about what happened with the OJ case happening here.
Yep.
There is no case here. This
right.
is the weakest of all the cases, except for the documents case, which we are now seeing is also going to be a fairly weak case. But so I honestly think that if there is a conviction, it could be appealed, because quite frankly, it is, and the Judge Merchan is so obviously biased against
Yes.
Donald Trump
Yes.
and his attorneys, you know? But to get back to what you were saying before, so go to Julie Kelly, because she's a much better explainer than I am.
Yeah.
The point, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I was just going to say, I'm just looking at it now, and what her explanation though is, on the left, what DOJ Jack Smith wanted to conceal. On the right, now we know why. More proof of collaboration between Biden, White House, and NARA to concoct a case. And I'm like, okay, I don't understand pre-indictment and early indications and all this stuff, exaggerated claims to records ban. The PRA, I'm like, okay, and lies about the independence from investigations into Trump. Can you put it in normal terms for us, please?
Simply to sort of distill it down, it is
Yes.
very shortly after Donald Trump left office. I think, what was it, May of 2021 when they started doing this?
Yes.
Several government agencies worked together, and this is where the conspiracy comes in. Remember, I tweeted last night, I said, I don't have a tinfoil hat, but this is a conspiracy. You have the DOJ, you have the White House. So you have the executive branch conspiring among itself, because the DOJ is part of the executive branch. But you have the White House, you have the DOJ, you have the National Archives, which also, I'm actually not sure what branch of government that comes under, but I'm assuming it's also the executive as well. And you have them all working together, but not wanting to actually make it seem as if they're working together. It's kind of like they're working separately, but in a parallel manner, and they're all aware of what the other agency is doing. And this is clearly Donald Trump, Joe Biden, in his limited capacity for, cognition, is like, before he sundowns after 5 o'clock in the afternoon, he did have some kind of understanding of what, because from his office there came directions to some of these to the DOJ, to Merrick Garland, to start looking into documents that had been taken. The interesting thing is that if you look in that memo, there's an initial acknowledgement that when there is a change in administrations, there is a bit of chaos. There is normal chaos. So just because someone has boxes of documents with them a few months after they leave office does not mean that they're trying to hide something. It means that they're trying to do house cleaning. Have you ever bought a new house? Have you ever moved into a new house or moved out of an apartment? Do you know what are in those boxes 5 months, 6 months, 10 months later?
We've lived in this house for 25 years, and I just unpacked a box upstairs that had all this stuff from planning our wedding. I'm like, why is there a menu from the Valley Forge Sheraton? Like, why
has the Valley Forge?
We got married in Villanova. Our reception was out in Valley Forge at the Ramada Sheraton thing that's together, like that's where reception was, right? But I'm like, gorgeous. Why do I have a menu? 25 years later, it's been sitting in a box in my attic for 25 years. I'm like, why is this here?
We moved into our house years and years ago in 1969. I was just a tiny little thing, and we had boxes there. We may still have boxes in that old house because we're still there, or we still have that house from 35, 40 years. I mean, they're just things that you just forget about. So I'm not saying that justifies stealing documents, but it gives context to why Donald Trump may have had some of those documents. More important,
may I say, not interrupting you, but may I say, Joe Biden had documents 20 years later.
Yeah, and he was never, and they weren't from when he was president either. They were from when he had them. Yeah, exactly. They were from when he was a VP, and maybe even beforehand senator, and maybe when he was trying to do research into his cannibalized uncle. He was an archivist as well.
Uncle Bozy.
I mean, seriously, just as an aside, of all the crazy things that you can talk about things that happen to your family, in what world does it occur to you to say someone ate my uncle?
Well, because it probably, who knows, somebody probably told him when he was a kid. Because when you get dementia, you don't remember what happened today or this morning, but you remember what happened, when you were a kid, right? That's part of it. I sometimes worry because I'm like, I can't remember where I left my keys, but I will remember the dumbest stuff from, God knows how many decades ago. And my husband's like, where did that come from? I don't know, but I have no idea, but I lost the remote to the TV. So,
God
I
forbid, God forbid anybody tells Joe Biden that he has high cheekbones, because he's going to think he's descended from Pocahontas. But a lot, it's, anyway. But it was also very interesting that I saw in there, and this is an act of commission and not an act of omission. When, I don't know if it was the archivist or someone from the DOJ, when they realized that Donald Trump had clearance. He had security clearance for these documents. When they realized that he had it at the time that he was in possession of these documents, they retrogressively terminated his clearance, because otherwise they would not have been able to have charged him with a crime, because he had security clearance for them. So it's so obvious what they are doing here. I'll tell you, Mayor, I used to think that this case was the strongest, the documents case.
Right.
The Stormy Daniels is not. The voter, trying the Georgia case, especially with Fannie Wells. I mean, I want to see her try and prosecute a case. That woman is like a keystone cop, altogether.
You and I need to start a GoFundMe, though, for her to buy some good foundation garments, because girlfriend needs a bra and she needs some kind of Spanx or something. Because when she walked up to that seat, right, when she walked up there, that butt looked like two squirrels fighting over a nut in a bag, right? Like that was like all over the place. I was like, oh, dear God. So we need to start a GoFundMe to buy her some Spanx and a good bra.
It's like my dad used to say. He said, "Got to be jelly because jam don't jiggle like that."
Yeah,
definitely. But yeah, so think about it. So I didn't think that the Georgia voter intimidation case is a good one. The Stormy Daniels one, as I explained before, and really just sort of copying what Andrew McCarthy said, I don't think, unless there's jury nullification, that they're going to be able to convict him.
Let me ask you about that case, if you don't mind me just jumping in here about that case.
Sure.
You said that unless it was conspiratorial to affect an election, all Donald Trump's defense has to do is say this would be criminal if he had taken the money and paid Michael Cohen, his lawyer, to hire a foreign agent to spy on Joe Biden's campaign, and then come up with a dossier of information that we know was false, and then feed it to the DOJ and the newspapers to spread it. That would be criminal.
Yeah,
but this is not. Right, Hillary. Exactly. What Hillary did was illegal, and the FEC only fined her. The FEC said there was no crime here and chose not even to fine Donald Trump.
It's almost like there's the shadow of Hillary in all of this too, because all of her emails and her server and in the basement, and then she wipes it clean. And all right, well, there's no big problem there. But Donald Trump has documents that he had a right to have, and then they retroactively stripped him of his security clearance, and so that's now a federal crime. What's the other one? Oh, and then the January 6th, I keep forgetting. There's like 4, right? The January 6th, his incitement to riot.
Right.
I also don't think that that's a very strong one. So I thought that the classified documents case was strong, because it is kind of damning that he did have such a large volume of documents, and they were all strewn around, although those photos must have been photoshopped. And
they were staged. They were staged. He said none of the stuff was on the floor. They threw stuff on the floor and everything. They were there for 13, they were there for 15 hours in his house.
Oh, yeah, exactly. But, I mean, the law, it looked like that was the one case that they might have been able to establish, beyond a reasonable doubt, because you have to remember, all of these cases are criminal prosecutions. So the standard of proof is beyond a reasonable doubt. And reasonable doesn't mean beyond any doubt whatsoever, but it means a doubt that when you look in the mirror and you say to yourself, I'm not a moron. Only a moron could believe that this is happening. But a reasonable doubt, basically, it's like, I can't really think of any other legitimate explanation for this. There are lots of legitimate explanations for why he would have paid a prostitute money to keep her shut up. I mean, have you seen Melania? She doesn't
I believe
smile.
she's a stripper, not a prostitute. But there's also with Stormy Daniels, she signed a letter that said, I never had sex with Donald Trump. I never had a relationship with Donald Trump. She signed a letter in 2018 stating all of that. And he tweeted it out about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. Oh, look. And it's a letter from Stormy Daniels. Now, which one is it? What is it? Which
Who
one?
did she write that letter to? Where was that letter? I mean, what's the context for that letter?
Hold on. Let me look it up.
I never had sex with that woman.
Daniels letter about Trump. Stormy Daniels letter about Trump. 2018 letter. Denied saying she had sex with Trump. To whom it may concern, over the past few weeks, I've been asked countless times to comment on reports of an alleged sexual relationship I had with Donald Trump many, many, many years ago. The fact of the matter is that each party to this alleged affair denied its existence in 2006, 2016, 2017, and now again in 2018. I'm not denying this affair because I was paid hush money, as has been reported in overseas owned tabloids. I am denying this affair because it never happened. I will have no further comment on this matter. Please feel free to check me out on Instagram at the Stormy Daniels. Thank you, Stormy Daniels.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I hope I'm sure the defense has a copy of that letter. And they're going to do a great cross-examination or direct examination of her on that, or cross-examination. Obviously, she's a prosecution witness.
But here's the thing. It doesn't matter because it's not about the quote unquote hush money. That's not illegal. Exactly. That agreement is not illegal. It has nothing to do with this case. It's about a bookkeeping error. This is about whether it should have been logged as an election expense, as Alvin Bragg says, as opposed to a personal expense. That's what this is about.
Exactly. I mean, there are problems. I'm surprised that Alvin actually really brought this prosecution. He hesitated initially, and I think, you know, obviously for political reasons, he did this. The same as Fannie Wills, the same as Jack Smith. But this is the weakest of all of the cases. The only reason that I think that there could be a conviction is because of the nature of the jurors. Now there are two lawyers on that jury.
Yes.
That I hope. And I mean, I know there's a lot of jokes about lawyers, you know, what do you have when you have 100 lawyers at the bottom of the sea, a good start and all that stuff. But I'm hoping that those lawyers at the very least will have some pride in their profession and will be able to assess the law, even though a jury is not a finder of the law, it is a finder of fact. But they should bring to this determination and deliberation some of their experience and some of their training and knowledge. I don't know. They may hate him. They may be lawyers like the Joker morons that get trotted on as experts on CNN and MSNBC. I look at them and I think, you know, you must have graduated in the bottom of your law school class. But I hope that will be the case. And if not, I do think that Trump will have a very good appeal based on jury nullification.
Let's go into that. Porch View Farm says attorney after attorney on that jury pool. So that's exactly what you were saying. John Dillon, who gave us Cheryl Atkinson, said I was close because we said it was Cheryl. He was close.
You were great, John. Thank you.
Joseph says, I fully understand that. I enter manufacturing facilities every day. I must sign an NDA. If I violated this, I would face repercussions as if I would if I violated that of my own company. Of course.
Right. But it's a civil. It's not criminal. It's a civil penalty.
Civil. Everyone sees, even if Donald J. Trump is convicted, this will be turned on appeal, even the Dems. Dems just want to tie him up for weeks, keep him off the trail, force him to spend money. They know exactly what they're doing. Absolutely, you're 100% right. And they just want to be able to label him a convicted felon before the election. This is election interference at its core. That's what this is about.
Absolutely, Mary. That's exactly right. I do think that's going to backfire a little bit, though, because I think when the charges were filed against him in those 4 different cases, he had a huge rise in his popularity and his favorability. the whatever favorability. I can't even think anymore.
Ratings.
Prevention. Thank you. So, but I don't know. And people who are objective, who are stepping back and they look at this, they know what's going on. Even people who hate Donald Trump, but who are decent human beings who care about the legitimacy of our criminal justice system. I know those people. I know those people who are, they're not never Trumpers. I will never vote for Donald Trump, but I don't want them to use him as a way to simply destroy our criminal justice system so that some bozo named Joe Biden can get into office. I really do think that decent people are still out there. I may sound like Pollyanna, but I've heard
you do. 100%. So let me ask you about the timing, because I think the Supreme Court, if Donald Trump is found guilty here, the Supreme Court will take this up immediately. I think they may make it go through all the appeals, but I don't think they will, because it's an election year and we're so close to the election. Supreme Court, though, is done in like July, right?
Yeah, that's actually the last day of June.
Right. So
last Monday in June.
Would they come back for a special session for this? Because I think there's going to be a lot of stuff going to the Supreme Court between now and the election.
I'm sure they can. They run their own docket. There's no statutory requirement that they deliberate between a specific period of time. I think it's just more a historical time frame. So absolutely, they could come back.
Okay. I'm just curious because the left so wants to just be able to call him a convicted felon. And if this has to wind its way through the courts, wait for the Supreme Court to come back from summer recess, etc., you're talking about September, and the damage has been done before anything can happen. And then he may not be acquitted of this until after the election. And by then...
Do you think, though, and I'm asking you a sincere question, I think the cake has already been baked. I honestly believe that people who think that these prosecutions are setups and pretexts to get him out of office or to keep him out of office will not be dissuaded by a conviction, which, by the way, will not be final because he will appeal it. So he's not a convicted felon. He is someone who there is a conviction at the lower level and he's on appeal. The people who despise him don't care what a jury says, except for the fact that they'll be able to sort of label him. But they've already made up their minds. I think at the polls, there's a big difference between those who could be impacted by by a conviction and those who would just take glee out of the fact that he's been convicted, but they've already made their minds up. I just don't see this, even a conviction, which may very well happen. I don't see that as having that much of an impact on the election.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Moving on. Scott says, heard that it's supposed to be under federal election laws, the agency that monitors. Yeah, the FEC said they were not interested, so there's nothing wrong here. Gregory says, something tells me that Joe was watching the National Geographic Channel the night before he made the comments about Uncle Bosie.
Was there a show about cannibals? Or was he watching that movie Alive about the poor Uruguayan
that's right. They crashed in the Andes. Joe says, Christine, don't give Joe Biden any ideas. Scott, everybody's been saying they always take presidential documents to be used in their presidential library that they always get. Well, yeah, Obama took documents. Bill Clinton had documents in a sock drawer. Come on, they all do it. Joseph says, I think cannibals ate Joe's brain. Ooh, I bet you that was bitter.
That would presume that there was something to eat in the first place. I think the cannibals were starving there.
Yeah. Gregory House says, jokes completely. He says, Joe says to Gregory, jokes completely aside, you could actually be correct. To quote the buffoon Joe Biden, not a joke. Whenever he says not a joke, he's lying.
I know.
Right? Every single time. No, not a joke. For real. I'm like, I know. So this is terrible. But I know someone who speaks the way Joe Biden speaks. He goes, no, not a joke. Like for real. Like he talks like that because he's so, and he talks like that. And he's not one of the brightest people I've ever met before. Like I don't say this to be funny,
kidding.
No, but I seriously think like there might be something like a little slow. And every time Joe Biden does it, I'm like, oh my gosh, he so reminds me of this guy. And every time this guy talks and I see him, I'm like, oh, it's Joe Biden. It's Joe Biden. No, no, Mayor, no, no, it's not a joke. It's real. I'm like,
Yo, man.
no,
Yo,
Mayor.
man. I gotta
No,
tell you
Mayor.
something, man. Yo, man. Come here, man. Let me tell you something, man.
No, he's saying Mayor, no, Mayor, no, Mayor, Mayor. I gotta tell you. Um, Porchview Farm, I don't believe there was an affair. She would not have gone away that cheap. In my opinion, I also agree Fanny needs Spanx or a Shaperman. Listen,
Yeah.
I have no idea if you're a larger woman. God bless you. Don't wear a tight dress like that, though. And for the love of God, put the zipper in the back.
I'm sorry. Lizzo has ruined everything for me. I can't forget.
Yes.
I can't not.
I know.
So anything slightly less than Lizzo is okay. To me,
Yeah.
I mean, she's just, ugh, God.
John Dillon says, I always wondered what it would be like to live in a banana republic. Joe, Christine, thank you for clarifying civil repercussions of NDA. You made that very clear. He also says, Christine, you are spot on. Pretty much anyone outside the Trump loyalist and never Trumper as a minimum will stop to consider the lunacy of his cases. In my opinion, though, it ultimately helps Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, I tend to agree because, as again, I said, there are a lot of people who are in the middle, or even, you know, they're liberals, but they look at this, and I know these people. I have friends who are liberal, and they're very upset. These are attorneys who are very upset at what is being done with, you know, it's like, what do they call it? Lawfare. They're using the law to hurt people. And I think that those people really do have a loyalty to our country and our legal system above and beyond party and partisan politics.
And Joe says, Christine, historic first. I disagree with you. Even a sliver, 1% is huge, to quote Donald J. Trump. That sliver can turn a swing state. That's true.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, that's true when you're talking about the electoral vote. I'm not sure, though, in the states that really are that close, that it can. I still don't believe that a conviction will make that much of a difference. If you're not going to vote for him now, you're well, if you're going to vote for him now, a conviction is not going to turn you away from voting for him. It might just keep you home. It might just say, well, you know, I don't know, it's a problem. If you hate the man, a conviction is just the cherry on top of your sundae. So, but we'll see. You may very well be right. Electoral politics, especially in PA, are really bizarre.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait to see what's going on there. Okay, so very quickly, this is just a recap of what Julie said. She said, outrageous lies by Joe Biden, Attorney General Merrick Garland, and the DOJ, Jack Smith, about independence from investigations into Trump. The Biden White House and the DOJ were intimately involved in developing a criminal case against Trump for records mismanagement. It appears the first go-round related to alleged destruction of government papers. Contrary to public and legal assertions, NARA, that's the National Archives, was working with the DOJ and the White House to craft a criminal referral by September of 2021, which was 5 months before the official referral by NARA to the DOJ in February of 2022. So they were colluding on this 5 months before the actual referral to the DOJ. And the DOJ knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Because they were in on it. She said, now you know why insiders like Andrew Weissman and Barbara McQuaid are desperate to get rid of Judge Cannon. Without her courage on this matter, incriminating evidence of Biden's White House and DOJ running the investigative show behind the scenes would be buried forever. The DOJ told NARA what to do to cover their tracks. Let's see. Hold on. I just want to make sure I'm getting everything here. Okay, the Department of Energy was also involved. They were the ones, the Department of Energy discovered after Smith handed down his indictment that Trump had the active security clearance, and they retroactively terminated it. How does the Department of Energy have the right to terminate a former president's security clearance when people like Clapper still have theirs?
I don't know. Does it have anything to do with nuclear energy? With I mean, I have no idea, but it did seem that was weird that they had the authority to do that. But it's all part of the executive, Mary. They're
Okay.
cabinet positions. So maybe they chose the least likely cabinet position to sort of CYA. It's like we're saying here, oh, the Department of Energy, why would they terminate his clearance? Well, because it would be a lot more obvious if Merrick Garland did it.
Right. Let's see. And then it goes on to Executive Order 13526, Section 1.7, Classification, Prohibitions, and Limitations. A, in no case shall information be classified, continue to be maintained as classified, or fail to be declassified in order to conceal violations of law, inefficiency, or administrative error, prevent embarrassment to a person, organization, or agency, restrain competition, or prevent or delay the release of information that does not require protection in the national interest or national interest. Okay. Where else are we? Come on, Julie. Where do we? I lost her. Hold on. I got to go back. It's like a text after a text after a text. Okay. I think that's. Oh, thread reader. Here we go. That's the what I wanted. The thread reader. Okay, legal assertions. They told NARA how to cover the tracks. The DOE was involved in the cover up as well. So let me. All right, so that's it. What we have from Julie Kelly from yesterday. Also from Julia Kelly today, you talked about the January 6th case, and not to just throw this at you, but this is something I am going to throw at you because you're smart and you can dance and you're a Villanova grad, so I know you can handle it. Because I just saw this. She just was posting this today. Where is it? Hang with me. Hang on.
She's very prolific, isn't she? She's fantastic.
She is. Oh my gosh. Okay. As Josh Gerstein just reported to Politico, SCOTUS requested a response from the DOJ in petition for writ of cert filed by Russell Alford, who was convicted by a DC jury of 4 misdemeanors for January 6th. It doesn't mean SCOTUS will take up the case, but it does mean they want some answers. The district court judge on the case was Judge Tanya Chutkin. She was the one for all of them. They're randomly assigned. She just gets all the January 6th trials. It says, at the close of the evidence, Mr. Alford moved for judgment of acquittal on the orderly or disruptive conduct counts, arguing that there was insufficient evidence that he engaged in such. The district court denied the motion. She said, this is pretty surprising since it relates to a very common January 6th misdemeanor. U.S. Solicitor General Elizabeth Preligar, who defended DOJ in 1512C2 SCOTUS hearing last week, that's the insurrection one, told the court the government won't file a response to Alford petitions unless SCOTUS requested one. So SCOTUS requested one.
Good.
Yeah. She says, keep in mind the D.C. Circuit seems to be delaying what will likely be a reversal of D.C. District Court interpretation of another 1752 trespassing misdemeanor. Oral arguments and appeal of a conviction were heard in December 4th. No ruling yet. If SCOTUS grants cert on this and reverses 1512C2, again, that's the insurrection clause, insurrection charge. In the meantime, it's hard to describe what a rebuke both decisions will represent to DOJ and DC federal courts. And the courts have not even considered seditious conspiracy charges or convictions or terror sentencing enhancement appeals yet. But so what this basically is saying is a lot of these charges, some of these January 6 people had the means to stand up and found a lawyer who was willing to take it on to stand up to the DC courts that a lot of people were saying they were overcharging. They're just overcharging these defendants. They're hitting them with all this stuff. They're overcharging. So people are just pleading guilty because they couldn't afford to not plead guilty. They had to get back to their lives. They lost their jobs. They're sitting in jail forever. I'm waiting for the cases of violation of rights for a speedy trial because they haven't even been charged yet and they've been in jail for 3.5 years.
Incommunicado. They haven't had any access to any. I mean, I don't even think they've had access to legal assistance. A lot of these cases were overcharged for a reason. Obviously, you throw everything at you scare a defendant. You say, I'm going to charge you with mayhem, with terroristic threats, with whatever. And then you make it seem as if you're going to go easier on them by offering a plea deal. And of
Right.
course, the person is so traumatized that, and they may not have a very good attorney. They may simply have someone that they could afford that is
Right.
in the business of accepting pleas, because a lot of these lawyers are not litigators. They don't want to go, they don't want to have to litigate this kind of a high profile case in front of that kind of a judge. So they'll say, yeah, just take this. And
Right.
they get off with probation, or they get off with a fine paid, and it's resolved, but they still have that conviction.
On their
And
record.
then they're scared to death to say anything about, I was wrongfully charged. And in some cases, there's like this woman I saw on MSNBC one time, or CNN, where it's like the Stockholm syndrome, where you become grateful to your kidnapper or your captor. She was there on television and she was saying, oh yeah, I hate Donald Trump. He made me do this. This was a horrible, horrible thing that he made. It's like it's like Michael Cohen. They completely flip because they believe that this is going to be in their own personal best interest, not because this is exactly what happened. So in terms of those cases, if they're dismissed, Mary, that's going to have a huge impact on the prosecution of Donald Trump, because how can you
Right.
incite a riot if there aren't any rioters?
So here's my thing, though. For the people who had their lives ruined, who lost their homes, who lost their jobs, who spent time in jail, the people who took plea deals, they can't undo that plea deal, right? There's no going back. That's final. That's it. Some of the people where you say they're up there, saying that, I hate Donald Trump. Some of them were required by a judge to write out, to disavow their support for Donald Trump. Compelled speech, like in a third world country, right? Where do these people go to get their lives back? Now these people who took a plea deal, they can never undo that, right? It doesn't matter that the government scared you. It doesn't matter. This is what you chose to do. It's kind of like what they did to Michael Flynn. We're going to go after your son. We're going to, and they went after Michael Flynn. So he's like, okay, Michael Flynn has the money to be able to go after them. And he's suing the government now for $50 million. Good for him. He lost his house. He lost everything.
Yeah.
So where do people go to get their lives back? And is there, the thing about this that bothers me is the people who did this are going to continue to live their lives. They will collect their pensions that the taxpayers are going to pay for. There will be no repercussion. There'll be no blowback. There's no stripping of their law licenses, nothing. And it was collusion, and they did it purposely, and they broke the law, and they get to walk away.
This is why I despise Lynn Cheney and Adam Kinzinger.
Liz
Cheney, I'm sorry. Did I say Lynn? That's her mom. Her mom writes nice little children's books, so her mom is fine. I like her dad. But I despise her, and I despise Kinzinger because they were useful idiots. They allowed themselves to be used for this specific purpose, to essentially create an underclass of U.S. citizens, people who like the individuals who were forced to take pleas. And let's be honest, these were compelled pleas. You can say, it's like you said, and you're absolutely right, they can't attack those pleas now. It's too late. There is a way, for example, in Pennsylvania, you can say that your plea was not knowing and voluntary, but too much time has passed, and I don't know DC law. Those people have no recourse. The people like Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger and whoever else out there, and Mitt Romney, these so-called patriotic Americans have basically just made their names throwing other Americans under the bus. And these are private individuals. Most of the people who are in prison, who were prosecuted, who pled guilty, these are blue collar workers. These are people who made, minimum wage. These are people who, they're paying mortgages on their homes. They come from small towns. I'm not saying that they're wonderful patriotic human beings. No. I absolutely push back against what they did. What I saw on January 6th was disgusting. It was repellent. Mm-hmm. It was incredibly bad behavior. And anybody who's out there saying they were patriots, no, they weren't. They were assholes. They were idiots, okay? But they weren't criminals. And that's the difference. They should not have been treated as criminals.
Yeah, there's a great grandmother who's going to go to jail because she walked in through an open door. Because remember, the violence was on one side of the Capitol. On the other side of the Capitol, the doors are being held open and people were just walking in. And
Yeah, but I
those
think at
people,
some level, you're not supposed to be in there. You're
but
not supposed to be walking through the Capitol
but when
because
the
you have to go there on invitation and
well,
tours. You don't just walk in.
if you don't know that, and you think it's Congress, it's it's the people's house, we can go in, and the Capitol police officers are holding the door open for you while you walk in.
Well, that would be the only thing. I think most people know that you can't just walk into Congress.
See,
I'm pretty sure.
I got to
But
tell you, I didn't know that. But regardless of that, people
but
were
if the
walking
door's
in.
open, yeah.
There's video of people walking in, and this woman, she's a great grandma. She went in, she looked, she walked around like so many other people did in Statuary Hall and left. She actually spoke to a Capitol police officer. He didn't tell her to get out. He didn't tell her she shouldn't be there. She spoke to him inside. She said a short prayer for the country and left.
Well,
She's
so what's
charged
she being charged? What's she being charged for?
4 charges: parading, illegally entering, with the 4 charges that they charge everybody
You
with.
know what? I'm not a criminal attorney. I'm not a great attorney, but I could get her off on those charges because there's no mens rea. There's no intent there to commit a crime. The poor woman believed that she was being invited into the Capitol. That's the difference here. What I'm saying,
Well,
you hold a door open and people are walking through. You hold a door open for me at the White House. I'm walking into the Oval Office. You open
right.
that door, I'm there. Hi, Joey. How are you? Any other members of your family been eaten recently? Excuse me. So I don't think she has the mens rea. She didn't commit a crime.
Well, there's a lot of people but there's a lot of people in that same boat who just walked in, stayed within the ropes, stayed on the rug, looked around Statuary Hall and left. They didn't commit any crimes, didn't do anything. And they were all charged. They were all had their houses broken into by the FBI, raided, guns pointed at their heads, paraded in front of their neighbors in, their underwear, in leg shackles and handcuffs.
This is what happens in South American countries when they have coup d'etat and juntas. That happened under Pinochet in Chile, and it's happening here in the United States. And that's not an exaggeration, and that's not conspiracy. And to me, that other people don't see that is really distressing.
I'm with you 100%. Let's go here. Where are we? Okay. I just want to get these up. Okay. Joseph says, serious question. Have you ever seen McQuaid smile, Barbara McQuaid? Maybe a Trump conviction might do it. Let's see. Now Tax USA, not since Jesus has any person been this persecuted. Well, I think there have been some.
No, I think kind of like the 6 million Jews during the Holocaust might say
there's a lot. He is either dodging going to jail, that's why Biden ran, or he is the real deal, sacrificing himself for the country. I believe he's a warrior. I agree. I think Trump has often said, the only thing that stands between them and you is me.
I'll say this, and I'm not a Trump lover or a Trump hater. I admire the man a great deal. I think he has that kind of like fierceness. He is a warrior. I don't necessarily think it's entirely because of love of country. I think he also has that sense of, he likes doing this kind of thing. He is a protagonist. He has that personality. There are people like that. I don't think this is all altruism, but I do believe he has more courage than virtually any other political figure that we have in the country at this moment, because he will not back down. He will say what he wants to say, do what he wants to do. And again, not a Trump lover, not a Trump hater. I'm not going to raise him up to the level of heroism. And I don't think that, I think Jesus would have something to say about this, but
I don't like that comparison. I don't like that comparison either. No, I see some parallels, but I see that with anyone who's persecuted, do you know what I mean? So I don't say that just for him, like you said, the Jews in World War II or today. But that's a whole nother topic. Now Tax USA says there seems that there are a lot of civil rights violations. So where are the civil rights attorneys?
They're still representing people down in Guantanamo.
They also will not, DC lawyers will not take January 6 cases. They won't do it because they're so liberal. And that's another reason they all have to haul their butts to Washington, D.C., and they won't have the trials locally where the people live. They want them to come to D.C. because they
Yeah.
know they cannot get a lawyer in D.C. And they know that the juries, Julie Kelly was saying, I interviewed her back when she was doing those trials, and she said the jury walks out of the room, walks down the hall, and is back guilty on all 4 counts in like 20 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's no question.
Yeah.
He's not going to get a fair trial, no matter where you move him. You move him anywhere in the United States, and venue is still going to be there. There are going to be people who love the man and who hate the man.
Right.
New York, there are no people who love the man. DC, there may be some, but I mean, they know what they're doing. They absolutely know what they're doing, and that's why that's the only reason I'm worried about the New York case, the Alvin Bragg case, because I don't think those jurors can be fair.
Well, you just need one. You just need one. That's all you need.
I hope it's the lawyer, one of the lawyers.
I pray. I'm constantly fingers crossed. You know, when I say my rosary, I'm like, to St. Michael, one juror, just one juror.
I'll tell you, you know, I mean, and that would be amazing if he beat the rap in New York. That would be legend making. I mean, he's already legendary in different contexts, but that would be legendary to be able to beat that kind of, and it isn't even the most serious case, but it will set the tone for the election.
And I will tell you, the next day I will watch Morning Joe. I will record Morning Joe so I can watch it over and over and over again. Now Tax USA says, if a judge violates your civil rights, can that judge be charged as an individual that violated someone's civil rights?
It's a very good question, and I'm sure they could, except for the fact, first of all, you'd really have to establish what civil right did they violate, and was this because judges have privilege? You know, you have police officers have privilege. Anytime when you have a public official acting in their public capacity, there's limited privilege and then there's absolute privilege. And I think it would be very difficult to hold a judge unless he did something so egregious, like Judge Alfred Sabo in Philadelphia many years ago. We have a murderer named Mumia Abu Jamal, police killer. And because he kept rising up in the courtroom and using curse words and swearing, Judge Albert Sabo, now gone to heaven, had him bound, mouth, you know, the tape over his mouth, and he was bound to a chair. And his conviction was overturned in part because Judge Sabo had violated his constitutional rights. But that was so extreme. I don't know how extreme of an act would qualify to get around that privilege that a judge, that any public official has.
You know, it's so interesting. Judges have privilege, cops have privilege, presidents have privilege, except Donald Trump.
White people have privilege too.
Oh, I forgot about my privilege. Yes, I forgot about that. But Donald Trump doesn't have privilege. Isn't that weird?
No. Right. He's
Joseph
not white,
Scott,
he's orange.
That's true. Joseph Scala says Kinzinger is just about the money. He's the MSNBC go-to Republican to rip Republicans. Yeah, of course.
He's an embarrassment to the military. He's an embarrassment to the military.
He was in the military?
Oh my God. Yeah. He was in combat.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. He was one of those Republican GOP soldiers who went into office touting his military cred, like Dan Crenshaw, who actually was in combat and lost an eye.
Yes.
Like I mean, there are a number of I think Will Hurd was also in combat. Many of them. Tulsi, isn't Tulsi Gabbard? Who left the Democrats?
She's still. I think she's still reserve. But so here's the thing. Adam Kinzinger struck me as such a soy boy. Okay, that's number one. So I'm shocked. Dan Crenshaw, met him. I've met him several times. I didn't like him from the get-go. I was very disappointed when I first met him. Very disappointed. And then when I met him a couple times, because the first time I met him was with Trump in the Oval Office, and Trump said, you know, you listen to her, you listen to what she has to say. Long story, but anyway. And I said, you know, hey, you know, I'd like to get you on our show. He goes, yeah, call her. I was like, never returned the phone call, blew us off. I saw him then again at CPAC. Dale, how are you? Mentioned the Oval Office. So he was like, totally cold, blew us off.
Oh, that's
I
so depressing. I love seeing him on
gotta
TV. Oh,
no, Dan
wow.
Crenshaw, no, he's a never Trumper. He came in with Liz Cheney when I was there, when he was brand new. And I got a vibe off of him from the get-go, didn't like him from the get-go.
Well, okay. I'm going to have to start
Yep.
because I trust you implicitly. So
Sorry.
I'm thinking it.
Now
Oh,
text.
just
Now
don't tell me
text.
anything bad about Bobby Sherman.
Oh, I never met Bobby Sherman. I still have the album with when you folded it out and it was like a life size. It wasn't life size, but it was.
Don't say anything about him. I don't care if he's horrible. I just don't want to know.
No, he's like he was an EMT. Now he's retired, but he was an EMT. The Capitol Visitor Center is open to the public from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The Visitor Center is closed Thanksgiving Day, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, and Inauguration Day.
The Visitor Center, yes.
Yeah, not the Capitol itself,
not
though.
Nancy
Yeah,
Pelosi's office.
yeah.
You know, on her desk.
But did you notice that AOC painted what's happening at Columbia and these other places where they're assaulting officers? An officer had a chair thrown at him, it bashed in his helmet, everything. It's peaceful. Those peaceful protests, she said. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're teeing up for another summer of 2020. We're teeing up for another summer of love. It's the election riots. We're going to have elections riots now every 4 years. And the Democrats, the black shirts of the Democrat Party are going to go out and they're going to destroy and they're going to loot and they're going to riot and they're going to instill fear and they're going to run wild. And we're going to be told the entire time that fire over there, that it looks like arson, but it's just a campfire. Well, Mary, and I know it looks like a whole building burning, but it's love.
I do think that there's something a little bit different this time because the rampant anti-Semitism is scary. And
yes.
we see it coming only from the left right now. It is not, Joe Biden had his Charlottesville moment the other day when somebody said,
yes.
What about this anti-Semitism and these anti-Semitic protests? And he said, well, it's kind of like there are good people on both sides.
On both sides.
It's horrible. But, who's horrible too? The people who don't understand what's going on in Palestine. Excuse me. We know what's going on in Palestine. They're killing Jews. We've got 100 and how many hostages that are still there, dead babies, raped women. We know what went on in Palestine. But what I'm saying is I think that these protests are different because I think that the large voting bloc of liberal Jews have seen what's happening and realize that the friends that they thought they had are not their allies. As MLK said, it's not the screams and insults of your enemies that hurt the most. It's the silence of your friends. And there's a lot of silent liberals right now who are afraid to come out and say, that's bigotry. That's anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
And there are some conservatives who are doing it too. And I won't name them here, but I'm completely disgusted with any conservative out there who does not support Israel and does not believe that what's happening is anti-Semitism bigotry.
Well, we got to go here, but there are a lot of American Jews who don't feel connected to Israel. There's a difference between American Jews and Israeli Jews. There's definitely a difference. The Hasidic sect, very, very pro-Israel, very conservative, pro-Trump. That's different than the Reform Jews. And a good friend of mine who is Jewish, who is Republican, and we have several of them. They don't understand why some of the most Jews in this country are liberal and vote Democrat over and over. Yeah. And I asked him about it, and he gave me the best answer I heard. He said, Jews have been victims for so long that they don't know any other way to be. So they're very self-loathing. They're just very self-loathing. He said liberal Jews, just because they're so used to always being victims, that this is just a perpetual for them. So they don't, this is just how they are. And he said they're just self-loathing Jews. And I think to a certain extent, he's right. Listen, I'm not Jewish. I can't speak for them. But it boggles my mind how American Jews can still vote for Joe Biden and still vote Democrat when they see what the Democrats are backing.
Well, just as it boggles my mind that any Catholic could vote for Joe Biden.
Yes.
The man has mocked and attacked our faith over and over, and our shared faith over and over and over again. I think the thing with Israel, with Jews in Israel right now, is that when it was limited to criticism of the Israeli government and Netanyahu and the conservative Netanyahu like Trump, that was one thing. But I think now that they're seeing the really evil face of anti-Semitism, which is not anti-Israel, it's anti-Jew. It's anti your skin, your blood, your entity, your essence. And that's coming from the left right now. That is not coming from the right.
Exactly. All right. Joseph said, Christine, I'm sure if you showed up at the White House, they'd welcome you with open arms.
Right now, that White House, I don't think so. Not if he's read anything I've ever written about him.
Scott says the Supreme Court is supposed to be weighing the validity of the law they used to convict those people on January 6th and said maybe thousands will be undone except for the bad stuff. Let's see, running through here. Gregory says, just like Judge Julius Hoffman did with the Chicago 7.
That's right. That's a great show, by the way. I think it's on it's Netflix, I think, the Chicago 7. And it's a great docudrama about what happened. Julius Hoffman and Frank Langella plays him in the show. He's brilliant. But yeah, he I mean, what was it? Was it Bobby Seale? Who was the Black Panther?
Yes, Bobby Seale. Bobby Seale was,
I mean, shackled. He was the only one too, the black one. He was the only one. The black defendant was the only one that got shackled. Again, he was the one who was screaming the loudest, but still, you don't do that to someone in a courtroom. You just don't.
Unless they're wearing a MAGA hat.
Yes.
And now Tax USA, how about forcing you to write a statement under duress? Like some of those defendants were forced to write statements disavowing their support for Trump.
I mean, what are they saying? Is that it's a violation of your First Amendment rights?
That's what I would think. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you agreed to that and you did it, can you go back and say, look, I did this under duress?
Yeah, you can look at the context and say, look what I did. I mean, there are cases in a different context where you have wills that have been executed and then somebody, challenges that will because they say, yeah, the person signed it and everything, but they were mentally incompetent and they had a real greedy granddaughter, hanging over their shoulder while they were holding the pen for them to write. So duress is a very legitimate defense against an act. There are cases where well, I won't get into it now, but yeah, right. I mean, if you have been forced to do something and you can prove that it was against your will, you have to show that the force was serious enough that you were not able to they overbore your will, that you were not able to not do it. And then maybe you could have a civil judgment against the individual. I don't know if that would have any impact on the conviction.
Right. All right, Joseph Scala, he's a very talented man, and you follow him on X. He said, anecdotal, when I sang the anthem at a Trump rally, I concur. Crenshaw was not nice to me or anyone else. Yeah, he's not a warm dude.
I trust Mary 100%, so now he's off my list.
I just got the vibe from him that at the time, like he was the hot commodity because he was new and he was just coming in and like, oh, everybody wants a piece of me type kind of vibe. I got
so
right. He had
in combat.
I don't know. I just didn't like him. He also says Bobby Sherman is an American treasure.
Yes, he is. I love Bobby Sherman.
John Dillon says there's a lot of former SEALs that despise Dan Crenshaw. Something is just not right with him.
Well, that says a lot.
I feel so good that like my gut was like, I feel good. I feel like I read him properly now.
You have great instincts, Mary.
Not always. Look back at some of the people I dated. All right, we got to run. Christy, thank you so much for joining me. I love when you come on. I have such a good time with you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Please like the podcast. Please tell your friends. Audio will be up on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thank you. I keep forgetting to say thank you to EB for doing all of the ad blocks that I do. So he did yours, Christine. He does all of those for me. So whenever I have a special guest, he makes those. So thank you, EB.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody who's watching. And I love you, Mary.
And his son, Zach, is our biggest fan. Zach watches this over and over and over again. So
hi, Zach.
Thank you so much.
I love that name, by the way. Zach is one of my absolute favorite all-time names.
One quick note from Joseph. I used to sing along with the Bobby Sherman show for my 5 older sisters when I was a little boy.
Joseph, see, you were raised extremely well. You're talking about
Yes.
Shindig, right? When he was on Shindig? Why do I know
Didn't
this?
he? No, he had a show. Didn't he have a show when we were kids? We were little.
One
He
of those
had
summer replacement shows, like he's
yeah, it was
standing
one
in
of the
front of a
summer
big neon Bobby.
yes, exactly. And he would come out and because I always wanted to watch what was it
Here
the
come the
the
brides.
bride Here Come the Brides, and I wasn't allowed to watch it because it was on too late.
It was
So
on at 8 o'clock.
I wasn't allowed to watch it. My parents made me go to bed. You're not allowed to watch it. It's
Wow,
on
I
too
had
late. I
some
was like,
really
oh.
permissive parents. They let me watch the show. I was 7. Wow.
Now, every now and then that my mother would be like, okay, you can. I was like, oh, I got to watch Bobby Sherman. But yeah, it was on too late. I wasn't allowed. So, there we go.
My love. He's my husband. He just doesn't know it.
All right. Thank you again so much. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. This was so much fun. We had some new commentators, people making some comments for the first time. Thank you. I will see you next Tuesday. Oh, Chris Salcedo's show Monday on Newsmax TV. And then next Tuesday, right here, I will be back with you at 7:15. Thank you so much. John says, thank you, ladies. Joseph said, yes, he had his own show. I'm really old.
You guys have by the way, Mary, you have great listeners and great viewers. They're very smart people, which is, a rarity in pretty much anywhere right now these days. So
most of them follow both you and me. So I'd like to think that they're brilliant. Bye. All right. Take care, everybody. See ya.